Hey, what's up you guys, this is Dylan Distorted, and today we're going to be going over the subreddit r/ProRevenge. This subreddit has become very popular as of late, and I'm super excited to cover it. If you don't know, this subreddit is just people going over pro-style revenge that they enacted on people who did them wrong. So without further ado, let's hop into this. Guy quit his job thinking he became rich. Hey, new to Reddit. I thought I would post my story here. I work for a construction company and we do remodeling on homes. We have a rule here that we get to keep anything we find hidden behind the walls. We hired this guy, we really needed a worker badly, who was a total a-hole from day one. I've been working for this company for 5 years, and this guy has only been doing construction for 1 year after he got fired from his accounting job for getting a DUI. Anyways, he would always make fun of my clothes and my accent, and one day he went too far by telling my boss about my private Instagram account pics. He got on my phone and looked through my Instagram page and showed my boss pictures of me smoking weed. Little did he know that my boss is my friend from 8 years, when we used to smoke together before we both quit. I was so mad that he violated my privacy that I made a plan to frick him over. He was the kind of guy who would always come in late and complain the trains or traffic is why he was always late. One day I overheard him saying that if he won the lottery he would quit his job for not getting the respect he deserves. You have to earn your respect here. One day I bought some fake gold coins online and put them in a metal box I found at the antique store and waited for a chance to hide it in the wall. Luckily, I did not have to wait long. The day he found the coins, it seemed like it was the best day ever. First thing he did when he opened the box, he called my boss an effing loser and he quit immediately on the spot. He said, "F this place, I'm rich." LOL. Little did he know was that was the best day of my life. After he quit, my boss told us how he was going to fire him anyways for always showing up late. I wish I could see the look on his face when he finds out the gold coins are fake. Best $40 I spent in my life. I apologize for my grammar, this just happened today and my adrenaline is pumping hard. Thanks for reading. Edit. These houses are bought at auction. People don't live here, so everything is owned by the construction company. Oh boy, I love this story. I had to deal with a lot of bad coworkers in my life, whether it be at stores like Walmart or Giant. If you don't know what Giant is, it's probably because you live in a state that doesn't have one, but it's a small grocery store that's pretty much on the East Coast. Regardless, I've had a lot of bad coworkers, and I wish that I would have taken these steps to make them want to quit, because some of them were just making the place so miserable by constantly complaining while doing minimal work. And anytime I would go above and beyond for my job, they would always make a point to come over to me and tell me how this is just Walmart, this is just Giant, this is just retail, this is just whatever it may be. And you shouldn't work that hard at a job that pays you this little. But I guess I'm just the type of person that likes to take pride in their work, so it was just more annoying that they kept coming up to me having to tell me that, hey, you shouldn't take pride in your work because you're not getting paid, as much as you should be. And it's like, yeah, I would love to make more, but I'm not going to just change who I am because of this. I'm also not the type of person that would just be sitting there being miserable. If I really hated it that bad, I wouldn't be working there. Harass my daughter on Minecraft? You can't hide from me. So my daughter, who was about 8 at the time, was really into Minecraft, as most kids were at the time. Also desperately wanting to join the YouTube/Let's Play culture, I had installed some screen recording software that would let her make videos of the games that she was playing that she could later upload them to YouTube. Anyways, one day I'm minding my own business when I hear her quietly sniffling over on my computer. I asked her what was wrong, but she didn't want to tell me, so I let it go, but decided to keep an eye on her. A few days later, I discovered what was happening. Someone was harassing not only her, but all the other kids playing on whatever server she was on. This kid, we'll call him Little Shithead, or LS, was saying shit about how he was going to rape my 8-year-old daughter. She told him how old she was, hoping he would stop. How he was going to hack into her IP and steal all her info, swearing profusely. Remember, this is a game for kids, etc., etc. By this time, I had gotten my fiancé involved, and she was also obviously quite upset at what little shit this kid was being. We realized that our daughter had been recording the entire incident, and a plan began to form. I started by Googling Ellis's username. There were several hits immediately, the most interesting of which involved a page where he was publicly applying to be a mod for a server on Minecraft. I was able to learn a lot about this little POS. He claimed to be 15, likes hockey, used to live in Toronto, but now lives in Florida, but the bombshell was easily his Skype contact info. It was literally first name dot last name. I know your name now, you little shit. So I head over to Facebook and search for the name. Nothing. On a hunch, I searched for just his last name, while narrowing my results to only the state of Florida. Several dozen hits. So I have to start combing through each one, until I found what I was looking for. A middle-aged man with the same last name, whose profile indicates he was born in Toronto, and now lives in Florida. I found your dad, you little shit. So I sent him a message on Facebook, asking if he had a son named first name, who goes by his username of Minecraft. Dad confirmed I had the right guy, so my wife begins to tell Dad everything that LS was saying to my daughter, and we sent him the recorded video as proof. Radio silence for a few days. Then we got a message back. LS had his computer taken away from him for the entire summer, and had also been lying about his age. He was only 11, I think. His parents were frickin' livid with him, and he surely hated the next few months of his life. No one fricks with my daughter. How you gonna be 11 years old on Minecraft saying that you're gonna rape a little girl? Especially an 8-year-old. I love the extent that these parents went just to get this kid in trouble and held accountable for his actions. Because really, do you think that this kid's going to stop here if he's not punished right away? I'm not saying he's gonna go around killing and murdering anytime soon, but if you don't hold a kid accountable, especially if the parents don't even know, he's not gonna be held accountable for this stuff, and then he could escalate in the future. And it's really for his protection too, because like, the older he gets, if he says that to the wrong person, he's gonna get knocked the frick out. Neighbor sued me after harassing my dog for months. Lost horribly. Several commenters telling me that you guys would enjoy the story. About 6 or 7 months ago, my neighbor got a drone. I don't mind people having hobbies, but for some reason he insisted on flying like the biggest jerk possible. He would hover in front of other houses and windows, try to race cars going down the road, and worst of all, he had a habit of flying his drone in my fenced backyard, buzzing over my dog, diving low just over my dog's head, before circling around to do it again. My dog isn't small. He's about 70 pounds and a Malamute. But the drone terrified him, and I was worried what would happen if it hit him. I asked my neighbor several times to please not fly in my yard and explained that it was scaring my dog. He basically told me to get lost and laughed in my face. When it still continued, I called the police. Unfortunately, there wasn't much that they could do other than ask him to please not fly over my house or property. Finally, in late December, it happened. My dog got tired of his shit and managed to catch the drone right as it was diving towards it. He shredded the drone. The thing was just a jumbled mess of wires and plastic. Neighbor was pissed. He stormed over to my house, swearing and threatening me, which I ignored. A week later, I got a summons to small claims court. He wanted $900 for the cost of his drone and an additional $300 for supposedly denying him access to his property. The drone sat in my yard for a couple hours before it was retrieved. Frick that. He could have killed my dog. I don't have kids or a girlfriend, I just have my dog who was my best friend for the past 7 years. That dog has moved with me 3 times, was there when I graduated college, saw me buy my first house and my first new car. I love my dog. Went to legal advice to get some great help from them. Turns out, him suing me was the best thing that could ever happen. When we got to small claims court, the judge basically laughed away his claims that I had intentionally trained my dog to attack his drone. But little did he know, I was prepared. I had dozens of photos of my yard showing it was impossible for him to accidentally fly that low to my dog, videos of him harassing my dog in the past, and I had saved all my medical bills from taking my dog to the vet. $700 for an x-ray? Check. Another $250 to sedate him during? Why not? Don't want him to be uncomfortable. Full dental exam with tooth cleaning / repair? $400. Then there was a cost of anti-anxiety meds and a secondary checkup. Wet food for a week in case his teeth were hurt, and extra just for good measure. In the end, the asshole ended up owing me almost $2,000, and now is being investigated by the FFA for not having a registered drone and violating several FFA regulations concerning drone flight, too near an airport, too close to other people, out of sight of operator, and way above the maximum altitude. Enjoy never being allowed to fly drones again, dick. There's already a subreddit called Entitled Parents. Soon we're gonna need one called Entitled Bachelors, if there's not already one. This guy is so entitled, he thinks that he's allowed to just fly his drone wherever he wants without having it in sight, without following any regulations. And what really grinds my gears is that the cops couldn't do anything to him. Well, apparently they couldn't. I don't see how they couldn't, because he was breaking FFA regulations, unless cops just aren't up to date on that. Either way, it's ridiculous. This guy gives all drone owners a bad name, and this is why so many people get so annoyed when they see someone flying their drone around. She hated me and made me think I was an idiot. I don't know if this is a pro, but it's certainly more than petty. In high school, 10 plus years ago, I was quiet and attentive in class. Teachers liked me. I wasn't popular, but I had good friends. I say all this to explain that high school was relatively calm for me. I played sports, was on the student newspaper, and got decent grades. However, that all changed my second semester of junior year. I've always been a voracious reader. My freshman English teacher recommended I move up to honors English track, so I did for freshman, sophomore, and the first half of junior year. Then I was put into classical literature my second semester of junior year. I've always loved Greek and Roman stories, and had already read your typical high school classical readings on my own. I didn't mind reading them again until I met Miss Umbridge. She put on a sweet facade, but she was downright evil. She also decided she hated me. I still do not know why. or what transgression I committed, but she hated me. I assume it was my habit of sometimes nodding off in classes. At the time, I had undiagnosed thyroid problems and was getting up at 5 a.m. for swim practice. I say sometimes because it happened maybe twice a month total between all 8 classes. I don't remember nodding off in her class, but it could have happened. Anyways, her class was 50% essay/written reports. The rest were random quizzes and a couple tests. I was on the student newspaper and was a decent writer. I wasn't worried about maintaining a B or up. We wrote our first paper and I got a D. I was shocked. The only class I struggled in was chemistry, and still my lowest assignment grade was a C. After class, I asked Miss Umbridge what I did wrong, because her notes were minimal. She told me my assessment of the material was uninspired. Okay, can you direct me to an example of an inspired assessment? Come back during study hall. So thinking she would have some example materials for me to review, I got a pass to see her during study hall. Nope. She spent the full hour basically telling me I was an idiot. I remember leaving and crying because she didn't tell me anything constructive. My friend, the eventual valedictorian, offered to help me on my next paper. My friend and I spent hours on my next paper. She never got below an A- on anything. I got another D. My friend was furious. She took it to her AP English teacher and asked him to review it. She said she was entering a writing competition and wanted advice. He said it was great. Her typical A+ work. My friend, quicker on the uptake, asked me for a copy of my original assignment. She asked her AP English teacher to look it over too, and he said she should enter the first one. This one was still good. He'd probably give it an A-, but the other paper was better. My friend was convinced Miss Umbridge was treating me unfairly for some reason, and she must not like me. My friend wanted me to tell my parents or my school counselor. A teacher didn't like me? That had never happened. Sure, they didn't all love me, but none have actively disliked me. I decided I'd try one more time, but this time get Miss Umbridge to help me. Despite the previous horrors of spending study hall with Miss Umbridge, I went to her office during study hall 3 times before the next paper was due. She reviewed the paper and gave me tips on revising it each time. She did this in red pen. I took notes. By the time the next paper was due, I had 3 revised versions with her notes in red ink on each one. I got a D+. She smirked and congratulated me on my improvement. Birch. I was done. My friend was right. This Birch had it out for me, and was giving me crap grades on purpose. I'm a laid-back person, but I was pissed. Never before been this pissed. I took my paper to the newspaper teacher. Sure, he didn't teach English, but our student paper constantly won awards because of his work. I told him I was having problems in English, and could he please look over my paper and give me advice. He was a little confused as to why I didn't ask my English teacher, but he did it. He also told me it was great, but gave me a few minor changes to make. I asked him if he thought it was a B or better. He said he'd give it an A. Not 100%, but a solid A. I went to my friend and we brainstormed. I couldn't request a drop/add. This wasn't college. You just don't switch classes at my high school, unless the teacher recommends an honor placement. That's not true, said my friend. The football and basketball guys get moved to easier classes all the time to keep their grades up, so they are eligible for games. The athletics director was a friend of my dad, so I requested a meeting with him and my swim coach after school one day. I told him I was in danger of losing my eligibility to swim, because I was pulling a D in a class. I wanted to move classes, but I knew I'd need approval from the administration, which I wouldn't get without a good reason. They asked if I'd requested help. I explained I had asked for help from multiple people, but my grade wasn't improving. I didn't know what to do. They asked to see my papers. I sat while they read them. They both looked at me confused. Neither of them could understand how these papers were worth only a D. The student vice president was brought in. He asked who helped me. I explained my friend. He knew who she was, again, future valedictorian. And she had even asked her AP English teacher to look over it for advice. I had also asked my newspaper teacher to help me. Student VP asked if I had ever actually asked my teacher for help. I smiled and handed him the 3 revised versions of paper number 3, with Miss Umbridge's red ink all over them. He frowned. AP English teacher and my newspaper teacher were pulled into the meeting. They were each asked to grade the papers. All 3 papers got an A- or better. While this was going on, my dad was called in by the athletics director. My dad was pissed. He demanded I be moved to another class and that Miss Umbridge be put under review. Clearly she wasn't grading students on their work, but her own personal opinions. The school administration obviously bristled at the accusation that a teacher was treating students unfairly. A lot of arguing that I wasn't allowed to sit in on occurred in the VP's office. I could hear plenty of yelling as 6 adult men argued over the appropriate next steps. It was decided that myself, my dad, VP, and athletics director would have a meeting with Miss Umbridge. The following morning before school, we all met. Miss Umbridge seemed to think she was going to get to tell everyone why I was so stupid. VP explained that if I maintained a D in her class, I would lose my extracurricular eligibility, and we were all meeting to discuss what to do. She smirked and said I should be moved to the non-honors English track, and I had no business being in honors English. I didn't have the aptitude to understand the complex classical literature they were studying, and I probably would need a tutor to even get through basic English. I'd never seen my father so red, and I half expected to see steam coming out of his ears. VP asked why she didn't try to help me improve. She said it was up to students to put in the initiative to get better. VP asked if that meant I had never asked her for help. She said I had not. VP then pulled out the 3 revised versions of paper number 3 and handed them to Miss Umbridge. Now it was her turn to be read. She called me a liar and said these notes weren't hers. Things got heated, and I was asked to leave again. I sat outside the office. This time the secretary was there, and we both heard the shouting. School was set to start in 30 minutes, and they were all just shouting. Then AP English teacher and newspapers teacher were called in again. More shouting. About 5 minutes to the start of classes. The teachers left, and I got called back in. If looks could kill, I'd have died then and there when Miss Umbridge walked out of VP's office. I was being moved to basic English effective immediately. My current grade would not carry over. I would not need to make up any past assignments, and new teacher would be instructed to grade me only assignments going forward. My new English teacher, Miss Honey, ended up being the English department head. She was at least 65 and had been doing this for decades. After 2.5 years of honors English, the class was easier than PE. I barely had to try to get an A, but I refused to let Miss Honey think Miss Umbridge had been right. I tried harder in that class than any other class that semester. I finished projects so quickly that I was asked to tutor a girl struggling in the class. I spent half the class period just helping the girl understand the material. I helped her go from a C- to a B+. I got something like 104% in the class. At the end of the semester, Miss Honey called me into the office during study hall. She was recommending I return to honors English for senior year. I must have looked panicked because she assured me Miss Umbridge would not be my teacher. In fact, she would not be anyone's teacher. She was leaving at the end of the school year. Miss Umbridge was only in her late 20s and unmarried, too early to retire. And my high school was in one of the best paying school districts in the state. I knew what leaving meant, but Miss Honey still explained that I was put in her class on purpose. The school administration trusted Miss Honey to determine the truth of Miss Umbridge's claims, that I was basically a lying idiot. Miss Honey stated that I very clearly belonged in honors English. She apologized if her class was not been challenging enough for me. I cried. I mean full and ugly snot cried. I didn't realize, but part of me had actually believed Miss Umbridge up until that moment. Miss Honey hugged me and consoled me. I spent senior year in honors English and spent my study hall tutoring Miss Honey's struggling students. To this day, I think about that awful woman fairly regularly. My career is strongly writing-based, and I still worry obsessively over my writing. I hope she never taught again, because she wreaked havoc on my self-confidence. This one hits pretty close to home, because when I was in high school, I had an English teacher senior year who, while she graded me fairly, she would also be very, very critical of my papers in particular to the front of the class, just based on what I was writing about, because I like to write about music and stuff like that related. If we're writing persuasive essays, I talk about why I think this genre is more technical to another genre or something like that. It was always music related. She knew that I really liked rock and metal music, and I would have loved to become a musician, but she would always make a point to bring mine up to the front of the class and then tell everyone how, well, you know, this isn't a real job and no one actually cares about whether this music is better or not or how technical it is. And to this day, that still gets to me. I will often start talking about music and then have that thought in the back of my head like, oh, no one actually cares about this. Okay guys, this has been r/ProRevenge. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Tune in whenever I release another video. Don't forget to subscribe and lickle the video if you lickle the video. Peace out, dude and dudettes.